Hey, Shawna, last episode we talked about those early years in life, but what about the 30s and beyond? Does anything happen in our lives? Were they pretty boring or anything eventful in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s?
Well, Allie, how much time do you have? Yes, of course. We have lots to share about how we are handling healthy aging, what happened in our 30s and 40s, and out for Allie, starting her 50s, and me into my 60s. And before we dive into that, let's give a shout out to our listener, Lorraine Moyer. Thanks for listening. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Allie Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminsky. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Shawna, I'm dying to hear about the memorable things that shaped your 30s. What can you tell us?
Well, I think specifically of two memorable things, and that was becoming a mom to my daughter, Hannah, and then 3 years later to my son, Sam. And for many women, I think that this is a big transition, just learning how to juggle motherhood, career, fitness, health. So that was a pretty exciting decade for me. And I mean, anybody that's a mom can kind of appreciate that. And I think any woman that's an aunt, a sister, a mom that's around any kind of child understands that that's going to be a big transition. How about you?
Yeah, but I was going to say, we can understand, but it's not the same. My clients that are moms in their 30s, they're busy. They have a lot going on, and it's really hard for them to find time for themselves and their health, their fitness. How did you manage all that? Can you give us can you give us some insight?
Well, yes, I mean, obviously I managed it because the children survived. I'm here.
Everybody survived.
Yeah, so that was great. I can say that I was not the best cook throughout it. I was always been like a really functional cook. So that actually probably saved me many pounds because I did make a lot of delicious food. I mean, I think I've just always been pretty dedicated to a healthy lifestyle. And so while it was more challenging, I did still prioritize sleep as much as possible, although your schedule is very disrupted, and healthy eating. And at the time, I always call him my former husband. I never like to call him my ex because we're friends now. Is he was very supportive. We were both supportive of each other in getting workouts in. We had a home gym, so that helped quite a bit. So yeah, we managed to maintain a pretty healthy lifestyle, and I would say that in my late 30s, I probably became as lean and muscular as I had ever been. And I think it's because you just don't get a chance to sit very often. And because I prioritized healthy eating. So
Yeah, I think it sounds like you with having a home gym and having that like-minded between you and your spouse at the time of this is important. This is something we've got to figure out how to fit in. That would be something that, for moms now, I think that, and I certainly don't know because I'm not a mom. So this is just Allie being the outside observer who knows nothing about nothing. But the struggles that I see is that so much is, at least here with people that I see that struggle getting in their fitness, so much emphasis is put on all the children's things that they're doing. And they're going here and they're going there. And I love for having a role model like Shawna who says, Yes, I did. The kid, my kid survived, and I was able to take care of myself, knowing that, yeah, you didn't get a lot of time to sit down. Obviously, that was a very busy time, I'm sure. And your kids are, I'm sure, were involved in things and
Yeah.
active.
Yep. The kids were very active, but I guess it was just a given that the kids get taken to their programs. They played a lot of high level sports, and did piano and academics, and there was homework, and that came later, probably closer to the maybe early 40s. But even so, they were always in something, but there was always a priority to have a little bit of self time. And that would be my encouragement for new moms. Is it is very challenging. It's so easy to lose yourself in motherhood. And I can say that I got lean by the end of the 30s, but carrying around a little of that baby weight, even if it was for a year while I was nursing, I didn't feel like myself necessarily. Like, I was carrying a bit more weight. Oftentimes you hear when you're nursing, the weight falls off, and it didn't for me. It fell off once I stopped nursing. But everybody's journey is different, and I do not want anyone to compare themselves to anyone else, because it is your own adventure. It is your own journey, and everybody's experience is a little bit different. I was lucky in so many ways in that I had healthy children. There was no health scares for myself, for my babies. And there's just so much going on in women's lives that we often don't know about. So the first thing I want to say is that I feel very fortunate that I was able to, like, even if it was a 20-minute workout, to be able to fit that in, because I was not running to the NICU, or like or there's so many other extenuating circumstances that
Single moms that don't have a support system. There's
Yes.
like women. I tell my ladies all the time, like, women are super women. Like, they really are superheroes, because I mean, we as gals take on that role. I mean, especially moms. Moms are like super duper heroes, because and like you said, especially the moms that are dealing with extra challenges, that don't have all the things lined up to make life do it. Because it's already hard with everything, with the help and with the home gym. It's still not easy.
Correct.
So kudos to the gals that are just surviving. I mean,
Yep. And I have to say that from what I know, Alli, my 30s were very different from your 30s, because you had challenges, but a different set of challenges. Tell us about what your 30s brought.
So I talked in our last episode, when I talked about my 20s, I started competing in fitness competitions in my 20s, but it was my late 20s. And most of my competitive career was actually in my 30s. And then I also opened my business in my 30s, my Pink Physique studio gym for women. And I got diagnosed probably my late 20s with Crohn's disease. And so dealing with Crohn's disease, weird thing that happened. I talked about in the last episode how there was a gap when I stopped competing in 2008, and there was this gap until 2014, and I did another show. What I didn't talk about is why and what that gap was about. And I competed in figure competitions in a natural organization. And in 2008, I did 4 competitions, which we touched on, and that's a lot for 1 year. But that was when I was really at the height. I was doing well. I had gotten to a place with my Crohn's. I'd gotten diagnosed. I was on medication. I was working with a coach at this point. And so I was starting to win pro shows, not just struggle or feel like I didn't fit on stage. And so I, at the World Championships, I was in top 5 that year. I was Miss Figure Universe that year. I also won the Iron Eagle Pro competition that year, and then I was second in another competition. Those were my 4. So it was a really good year, and I was really excited for the next year because we talked a little bit about competitive nature last episode, and I wanted to win the world championships because I got in the top 5. And so my goal, that was my first time going and competing. So I felt like, okay, now I know what this is like. Now I'm ready. And Crohn's kind of struck, but not in the way that people might think. So I was having trouble with Crohn's. And one of the things that we determined is that I tended to have flare-ups more with my Crohn's when I was on my menstrual cycle. And when I was talking to the physician assistant at my gastroenterologist office about this, she said, well, hey, why don't we try putting you on this birth control where you only have a cycle 4 times a year? Because if your Crohn's, I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. If your Crohn's is being more flared up when you're having a cycle, maybe if we reduce the number of cycles you have, we can reduce the number of flares you have. Well, once again, my track record with birth control has not been great. And so we did try that. And it was one of those birth controls where, again, you only have to cycle 4 times a year, which is, first of all, let's just say that's not natural, okay? It's not natural for a woman's body to only have a cycle 4 times a year. So when you start playing around with that, no surprise that might not turn out so well. So some of the same things started happening. I started having huge mood swings, like really horrible, just mood stuff going on. I started gaining weight, just not feeling well in other ways. Like even if my Crohn's may have been better, I was having a lot of other problems, mentally, mood-wise, and physically, just not able to just gain weight. And so then I stopped that birth control. And when I stopped the birth control, and actually, I'm trying to remember. So this has been a while. So I think when I actually was on that birth control, instead of it stopping my cycle, it was actually making me bleed more regularly. And it was either then or when I stopped and got on another hormone. Anyway, at one point I just was bleeding. Instead of it not having a cycle, I couldn't get off of a cycle. So I was just having a lot of bleeding. And so then we had to try to give me other hormones to try to get my body back to normal. Well, as I said, I competed in a natural bodybuilding organization. And so we had like a banned substance list. You can't take certain things to compete in unless it's, certain things you get like banned for 7 years, certain things you get banned for all these years. Anyway, so I had to end up taking some type of progesterone to get my cycles regulated again. We tried a couple of different progesterones, and eventually I was able to get my cycle back regulated. In the meantime, I contacted the people in charge of the bodybuilder organization and just letting them know, like, hey, I've had this going on. And, we put me on birth control. That didn't work. It screwed up my cycle. Then we had to put me on progesterone to get my cycle back. And they told me that was not allowed. That progesterone was a banned substance. Now, this was a male-led organization who obviously did not understand a lot about the female body. And, I don't know. Anyway, that's what they told me. And I emailed them, and I was just shocked. I was like, how could this be banned? I'm like, women take birth control. Some of them take progesterone-only birth controls. How are they not banned? Like, what the heck? So anyway, I couldn't get them to budge. They were like, we'll reach out to our lab person, supposedly. So there went my dreams of competing. And I was like I said, I was in the top 5. I was going to win or be like first or something. Like I had no doubt. Like I was, this was going to happen because I was determined. So I did not compete for several years because I was a druggie, apparently.
Well, you never actually competed because you would have been like you would have. I had to take the drug test.
I would have passed the drug test. I would have passed, but we had to take a lie detector test, and they're going to ask you if you've taken anything on their banned substance list. Oh. Well, according to them, progesterone was banned, and so and there was no thing about medical, for medical reasons or anything. They did have allowances for people like that might be taking insulin for diabetes or things like that, but there was nothing for this. And so I was not able to compete. And at the height of my game, I lost from 2009 through 2014. And so that's a long time to sit on the sidelines. And from getting ready and getting your body ready to compete. And then your body changes, years go by. By 2014, I'm older, my hormones are changed. It's harder for me to get leaner. I work with Dr. Joe again, and it was just such a struggle for me to get leaner. And it was so hard on me, just mentally, physically, emotionally. But the reason I got to compete in 2014 is the bodybuilding organization that I was a part of was bought by a female. And first thing I did was email her. And I said, they told me that progesterone banned me from competing. What the heck? And she was like, what the heck? And so I ended up, I don't know. Anyway, she said, that changed things. And she said, yes, you can compete. So I got with Dr. Joe, again, started getting ready for the show. And it was just so hard. And I did well. I mean, some people told me that was the best I'd ever looked. I got second after a long hiatus in a very competitive pro show. So I'm not sad about how I did. However, in 2009, I'd have been able to do a lot better. I feel like it would have just been a different ball game. So I haven't competed since. That was the last time I competed. And I'm proud of myself that I did it. I dusted myself off. Got back, did what I did, but it was a different time. And I mean, I was in a different place with my business and just in life. And it was like my time had passed for that. And that was just kind of the realization that this is just not worth it anymore for me. So that was the last time I competed. So that was in my 30s. And then we can talk more about, the business. I also did my 30s, but anything else that's kind of one of my big memorable events in my 30s. That was really heartbreaking for me at that time. It was very devastating.
Yeah. Well,
I felt like it was taken away from me. And, so that was, woe is me kind of moment.
But you made a comeback despite challenges.
Yeah. Right? Not the comeback I wanted, but it was still.
Yeah. And the thing, and this is one of the reasons why you're such a great coach, is that hunger, challenge with fat loss, because being in a figure competition is all about etching away every little fleck of adipose tissue.
Yeah.
So you do understand. And so that's such a great education. So that is something that is a gift that you bring to the table, to your business, to your future self, because you do get to know your body when you are so in tune with it for that kind of show. So that's why I enjoyed.
Yeah. Well, it teaches us so much about ourselves. It shows us what we're really made of. When we do something that challenging, it builds confidence, because you realize I can do hard things.
Yeah, exactly. So that took you through your 30s. Tell us a little bit about why your business in your 30s. Mine was in my 40s, but I want to hear why you started yours in your 30s.
I think probably because I didn't have kids. So my business was my baby. That was my baby in my 30s.
That's fair.
Was having a business, not having a baby.
Yeah.
And that was something that I always said I would never, never say never. I never want to own like a women's gym or a women's fitness center, because I just thought those were just like not serious type of gyms. And I had the opportunity with finding a space and having a business partner initially that was interested in doing a gym. And so we decided to do a women's gym, Razorly. The space that we ended up renting had already had a women's gym. So we just kind of went that route. And the reasons, it was just one of those itches. Like I had a great job, great benefits. I worked at a college, director of like the health and wellness programming and recreation at the college. But I had been there about 8 years. And so it was hard to decide, because I was leaving something that's considered kind of like a stable job, and I had benefits, and I was going to have retirement if I got vested. And I actually left like a year and a half or 2 years before I was vested, just like the basic level of being vested. You had to be there 10 years. So I left that, and because I just got to the place where I was bored with it, and I was just wanted to do something different. And that's why and because I didn't have kids, it allowed me the ability to take that risk, probably. Whereas for some other people, it may have been, if I couldn't imagine that would have been a totally different decision had I had kids at home. And I think that's why I did it in my 30s, and you probably did it in your 40s, maybe.
Yeah. And Robbie, your spouse, it was supportive. Like, we both had great opportunity to step out of our box, which, like, our comfort zone, which I really feel is a big part of healthy aging. And kudos to you for being bored and saying, I'm not going to, I have these golden handcuffs of, I'm going to get benefits, I'm going to get health care, I'm going to get, retirement. Which is really the golden handcuff, because you were unsatisfied and not feeling you were fulfilling your purpose.
And I think competing, again, that confidence boost from competing helped with all of that. I actually opened my business. So I did those 4 competitions in 2008, and I opened my business in the end of 2009. So that was, in that same kind of time frame.
Well, good for you. And I did something very similar, because I had been a teacher for 19 years, and I loved teaching until I didn't. And I love kids. I have my own children, but I became more interested in their parents and the moms, and helping them become more healthy, because I knew that if moms got healthy, the children would. And same as you, I was just so very bored, and I thought these kids deserve more than a teacher that is just there for the benefits, for the summers off. It's a very, teaching is a great career, especially if you have a family, because you get all the school holidays off. It's a great career. I loved it. But then I did be in my 40s. I became the reluctant entrepreneur, because we had a home gym. All my neighbors were, please, can you train me? Can you train me? And I decided back in the early 2000s that I do not have time for one-on-one training with people, because I have these children under 10. Since the kids came, I always worked part-time, but I was working part-time. I was a full-time mom, and then all my neighbors wanted me to help them, and I had a will and a heart to help these women that they just needed help. So I just did a group circuit in my garage gym, 1 on 12. I just set it up, and I just created. It was such a fun time. I still have people telling me, wow, I really wish you had that set up again. And it really was fun. But it got tiring to have people in our home, because it is difficult to have this, because it just exploded. It just became so successful, accidentally. And I sometimes think that when you go into something for the right reason, I didn't go into it for monetary gain. I loved it. I had a passion for it, but I also had a passion for these mostly women. I had a few husbands that joined in, but they just wanted to get fit and healthy. And that was just, sometimes things fall in your lap for a reason, I think. So it became so successful. I mean, I'm not I don't mean to toot my own horn. It became problematic, because it was too big for the space. So that's how I ended up opening a boot camp. I just needed to move to a bigger space so that then I could handle 60 people a day instead of like 15 or, so then I was helping 60 or 100 people a day through a boot camp. So that was kind of my 40s. So we kind of just jumped ahead and I just bulldozed ahead.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but 40s is an interesting time. So I started my business in my 40s. Your business was ticking along in your 40s. What else happened in your 40s?
So I'm still technically right now in my 40s, Shawna.
That's true. That's true. You're in your last
few more days.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Few more days. I'm going to hang on to these 40s as long as I can.
Yeah.
So we started a podcast in my 40s.
That's
How about that?
Yeah.
That's something that is a big event that has happened in my 40s. Had hip surgery, hip replacement, which we've talked a lot about, and we'll talk more about that. And my business, I was renting initially my first 10 years in business. And then in 2019, we bought a building, took on that risk or that challenge of buying a building versus renting, and moved the business to the new location. And then, of course, the big event that was in my 40s and probably in your 50s was COVID happened. Yeah. And so we all have shared trauma, I think, or challenges that we faced during whatever decade you were in during that time. And keeping a business running through COVID and getting to the other side with my business still intact, all that happened in my 40s. And thankfully, based on the training that you and I did with digital marketing, I was ahead of a lot of other people probably and had some tools that a lot of other fitness business owners probably didn't. So I was more prepared for that. And I was able to turn my business from brick and mortar to digital in 3 days.
Yeah.
Boom, done. We were converted. But that was because of the tools I had gained from going through a digital marketing, year-long, at least, mastermind of learning with Shawna was in there, learning how to do that. And so that was a big thing that happened in my 40s that was memorable.
Yeah. And I think that was probably maybe 15 years ago, between 13 and 15 years ago.
When we did the digital marketing program.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
and who knew it was going to pay off because of a pandemic? Cause then, I really wasn't using a lot of that because I was doing my brick and mortar, running my training studio or gym. Yeah. And so I really wasn't using any of that, but man, was I glad when COVID hit that I had that knowledge, the skills, the abilities, all the tools. I had everything.
Yeah. And I think I had a bit more passion for the digital because when we met, I was pretty deep into digital marketing because I went online in 2010 when I decided that I just couldn't help enough people even in my boot camp. So I had a pretty solid digital business going at the time. So the pivot from brick and mortar to digital, March 18th, 2020, I think that was the day, that we closed on the 17th and we were up and running on March 18th. And then I transitioned strictly to online after COVID. So that was a change in my 50s. I mean, now I probably can talk about my 50s and 60s because I'm 13 years ahead of you.
Sure.
Maybe next week we have to talk about your 50s, what your first day or two.
I was going to say, I can't speak to that yet. I can't have nothing to offer on the 50s, Shawna. I'm still hanging on to the 40s.
Yeah. Although I must say that in my 40s, I'm going to go back. A big transition was the dissolution of my marriage. And that was when my partner and I parted ways. That was in my late 40s. And I think that it is a very common thing in as women find their voice. When I look back on, and this is all about healthy aging, because when I look back in my 40s, early 40s, getting through the mid 40s and becoming more vocal, sometimes that is not received as well as one would hope. And then relationships change. And that definitely happened with me. And I mean, the regret I have is that, when you get married, you make a promise, and then I feel like I broke the promise. So I feel I'm quite sad about that. I am very happy to say that my former husband and I are very amicable. We celebrate Christmas and birthdays together. He's always at my house for dinners and that sort of thing. So I'm happy that we've made it to the other side of that. That's just a personal aside. But I do think that many women go through a time where I don't feel like in my younger years I was able to articulate my feelings or have the confidence to stand up for myself in ways that I was able to in my 40s. And I started the business in my 40s. Like, everything was a gaining of confidence. And that I don't want to say it wasn't well received, but it was a big change in the relationship. It changed the dynamics of it. And it just could not survive that. We can survive a good friendship now. So that was,
that is very common.
Aside. I think
if you look at stats, like women in their 40s, that's a big divorce time. For a lot of couples, 40s, 50s, there are, it's a high divorce time, and it is, women change. It's funny. We had a guy here a couple of days ago, pressure washing, and he made the comment, because we were talking about getting older and our bodies and aches and all the things, and he just made the comment about that his dad had told him, just watch out when those women hit the menopause, the period, or I don't know if he used perimenopause, but when they're hormones, you just better be ready. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, but it is. I mean, we do change, and there are challenges, and a lot of women that have come before us did not have a lot of tools to deal with those things, and still don't necessarily. There's still some women, people, whether you choose to do hormone therapy or not, there's just still so much confusion out there about what happens to women during this time and what the effects are. But there are some good changes. I think that finding our voice is a really good change. Yeah. And I want to say, this is in your 50s. You also got into a relationship again, right?
I did, but that was like 10 years later. So I'll talk about that in my late 50s. But I do want to say that I think that while I am a little bit disappointed with how menopause is like the Wild West for marketing now, that women are very vulnerable for sketchy marketing right now, because they're in a vulnerable position and looking for answers. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to the fact that there's some people that are really bringing menopause to the forefront. So we're talking about it. When I was I didn't even think about menopause in my late 40s, when I was probably in perimenopause. Yes. And I must say that I was fortunate that I didn't have a lot of symptoms. I had the odd hot flash, but weight gain was not an issue. Sleeping was fine. I didn't have the mood swings. I was so fortunate, and I do credit that to a healthy lifestyle.
I was just going to say, Shawna, I think some of that probably had to do with you. Yeah. A lot of that had to do with your lifestyle over a long time.
Yeah. Yes, but I think that women are becoming more aware, and just like your window washer or pressure washer, men are starting to be like, they don't know what to do about it yet, but they know that we must fear the menopause like Voldemort.
Right? Yeah, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I found it humorous.
Yeah,
nevertheless,
the awareness that maybe
and that they're having those conversations. That the dad is telling his son, like, let me just let you know, buddy. Let me just fill you in on a little secret here. Yeah.
And so maybe everybody will be able to cope more effectively to manage those difficult years, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we can hope. That might be our wish. We might just go ahead and claim that.
That's exactly it. Yep. And you know, after my marriage dissolved, I was really in business mode because there's nothing like for myself, I felt like the best way to kind of get over a broken heart or, you know, hard times is focus on helping others. And that was what my business was all about. Plus, there was a financial incentive for myself because being an entrepreneur, as you know, you can't lay in bed and wallow. And if you're an entrepreneur, you still have to put food on the table and keep a roof over your head. I wanted to be able to help kids with education, all that kind of stuff. So I was very focused on my business in my 50s until probably until I was 58. I was focused very much on fitness and my business until Alan saved me from myself probably when I was 58. I was probably just way too serious about everything, and then he brought a little bit more fun into my life. I feel like I didn't do much in the way of dating at all. I just felt like I wasn't my best self, and I didn't want to be bringing a broken person into a relationship. So I felt like I was ready. I was healed and ready. And we have that dating episode.
Yes, we talk about Shawna's dating.
Yeah,
in her 50s.
Yeah, we can put that episode in the show notes. But yeah, so that was a really great thing in my 50s and my late 50s to find a partner that is just so like-minded and fun, and opened up a world of travel and hiking and biking and paddleboarding. And he's a real mountain man. And so I always enjoyed that sort of thing, but didn't really have that in my life very much. So that was a bonus. And then I'll just touch briefly on, I'm 63 now, but I must say that when I turned 60, I found it quite liberating in that I know some people look at that and think, oh, you know, the clock is ticking down. And I just felt liberated in that, wow, like there's just so many good things that are coming. And I felt like I could give my competitive self a little bit of a break. I'm 60. And while I still hold high standards for athletic endeavors and this sort of thing, I think I've just took me 60 years to finally give myself a little bit more grace, which has been a gift to myself. So, yeah. And
that was episode, just to go back to the Finding Love After 50, episode 18. So if you want to check out if you want to check out Shawna's story about finding love and after 50, go to episode 18.
That was a fun one. But
that was,
And then I must say that when we had Dr. Carrie Bernight, she is in the 50s, episodes in the 50s, might be 55. I'm not sure. We'll put it in the show notes. But that was an episode that the interview with her really helped me not change my perspective on aging, but really put it more in a positive light in that, you know, she points out the 4 things that we need to work on in terms of healthy aging, which include, you know, learning something new, having companionship or a community. What else was there? There's
episode 92, becoming happier while growing older.
Oh, I thought it was in the 50s.
I know. I was like, oh, let me check. It's 92.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, 92. Yeah, and so she talks about those 4 pillars. And I just looked at my life and I thought, I need to work on more community. I'm quite an introvert, so I needed to reach out. And so, for example, my high school friends, we just all went to Kelowna. There's 8 of us and celebrated our champagne birthday, which means we were born in 63. We all turned 63 this year. So I've made a conscious effort of reaching out to those social connections that I've always enjoyed, but have been shy to pursue. So that has been a win in my 60s as well. So I really recommend Joyce Band, the book, and the episode where we interview Dr. Carrie Bernight, because that has been very helpful for me looking ahead in my 60s.
Yeah, and it sounds like you put efforts into these relationships. You're putting more effort into relationships is one of the things that I hear in your 60s, that has been a change in focus.
Well, because they say that social isolation has health drawbacks similar to smoking.
Yeah. Socialization. People need people.
Yeah. And, it's more difficult. I'm looking at my kids now that are in their late 20s and early 30s, and they have these really great social connections, but they don't have kids yet. They aren't in the thick of life. And so sometimes what happens is when you're in the thick of life, friendships fall away and your friends
change.
They change because now you're friends with the other dance moms or the hockey moms or the soccer moms or parent groups. But then those also fall away because your kids are onto something else. And it's not that the relationship, there's a issue with it. It's just that everybody's lives, they just don't connect as much. So to me, it's been such a, we had those connections like going through your 40s and maybe early 50s, but then kind of going back to your roots and like my high school and junior high, some from elementary. These friends are like 50-year-old friendships. There's just something special about that. So I do encourage people, as you look towards aging, to not discount the social aspect. We're always talking about protein and sleep and workouts, and these are all very important, but the social connections, vital.
Yeah, and for you, it's interesting because you had kids in your 30s, and then you were really focused on your business in your 40s and in 50s.
And 50s.
For me, it's actually pretty challenging because I don't have kids. I don't have those connections with other moms. And so my business was my was my friend. It was my baby, my friend, and my clients were, my companions, I guess. And I have relationships with people either much older than me typically, or much younger than me, because people that are my age typically are in the thick of child rearing. And so it's hard to have friends my age because of that, because I'm an oddball and I'm just in a different, everything going on with me is just different. I'm not taking somebody to dance or football or, it's just, so even friends, and it's interesting, some of my younger friends that I'm friends with and spend time with until they start having kids, and then their lives change. Like they make different relationships and different friendships based on the activities they're involved in. So those of you, the few of you out there like me that may not have kids, that is one of the challenges with that whole socialization part, is you're just the odd woman out.
Yes, and I can imagine that being a bit isolating as well. And people giving you the side eye of, well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons I got into competing in that stage. I filled that stage of life with other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you needed to find fulfillment in other, and validation in other ways. And it is, I want to remind everybody that there is not just one path. It is a choose your own adventure. And for those women that have chosen not to have children, I think sometimes people feel like, oh, I have to explain why. There's no reason. There's no why. It's like, this was my choice.
Yeah. And whether it was your choice or not your choice, it just is.
You. Correct. Yes. Yeah. And so I can see how that would be a challenge for you, Alli. So I would encourage you, as you get, once you're into your 50s, is it next week or the week after? Very soon. Yep. You're venturing into your 50s. Is that lots of women in the 50s that chapter of life is less busy. So it might be a
Well,
little bit easier. Friendships
yeah.
might be a little bit
Uh,
easier.
I even found like my sister and I are reconnecting more. Now her kids are growing up. Like,
Right.
she's been in that mom mode, like
Yeah.
raising two kids. They're one of them's done with college. The other one's about to be done with college. They're both getting married in the next 12 months. So, so it's like it kind of circles back because some of those
Yeah.
relationships that you have that maybe they've been busy raising kids,
Yeah.
now their life is going into a new chapter. Their journey's changing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it does. It's like now I'll be in a different stage in relation to other people's stage will also be different that are my age or close to my age.
So looking ahead, Allie, we talked about my 50s and 60s. Next for me is 70s, which sounds like holy man. But what are you looking forward to in terms of the future and healthy aging?
One of the reasons and I mentioned this when we talked about my hip surgery, I didn't want that to be my 50s, just being in
Yeah.
pain. And so that was one of my reasons for getting that done before I turned 50. For me in my 50s, I'm looking at staying active and being able to be more active than I was in my last few years, in my late 40s, mid to late 40s, and taking care of myself as I go through these perimenopause and menopause changes that are inevitable, and continuing to help women, as that's my passion, in the health and fitness space in whatever
Whatever way.
way that looks like. And
Yeah.
then, I'm also have a real estate investment business that I'm been building, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to delve into that and learn more about it and just tackle more things there and get to a place, at this stage in life that I can be more secure so that I can do the things that I want to do and take care of myself and just enjoy life and go see Shawna or travel to
Yes,
Iceland.
have more group trips. Exactly. Yeah, and I am excited that you have this not maybe I don't know how new your passion is for real estate, but you have a couple Airbnbs and you kind of have a side hustle again. And so I just love that it's not just, oh, I'm just going to go watch TV or same old, like you are challenging your mind and your like capacity to learn, because I really think that's about all about healthy aging is doing new things. So good for
Oh
you.
yeah, it's definitely. I'm learning lots of new things every day, and it's exciting. I love that. I love taking on a new challenge and continuing to learn.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And same, I'm looking forward to continuing to be healthy. I really want to be a good example to my children in terms of what health can look like. I'm very happy that they've really picked up healthy lifestyles. And it's not a guarantee. There's many people that parents are healthy and children go the other direction. So I'm ever so grateful that my children caught what both my former husband and I were pitching at them, that they've really embraced a healthy lifestyle. So I'm quite excited about that. And, I'm not a grandma. I'm a grandma to fur babies, which I love, but at some point I might have that chapter to look forward to, which I'm excited about. And it's interesting because while your passion is another business venture, a challenge for me is doing less.
Mm.
And I am doing less, which I'm excited about. I'm taking a little bit slower approach to life, whereby, I'm really prioritizing my workouts, my slow mornings, helping my clients and my kids when I can. But slowing down is, I don't want to say slowing down like I'm not moving, not that kind of thing, but slowing down my pace and being fine with it. I always wondered, would I be able to do that? And I'm consciously choosing that and enjoying it. So I'm quite excited about that because I don't feel like it's a loss, where I think sometimes people, when they wrap up a career or they retire, I'm not retired. I'd say I'm kind of semi-retired because I've chosen to work less. But I think some people look back pining for those busy days that I wish I could, or I wish I was back there. And I'm happy to say that I'm not, and that I'm happy to look forward to a little bit slower pace of life where I can I enjoyed my life before, but I was always busy. And I didn't know what it would be like to not be busy. And I'm learning. That's something new to me, learning to slow down. And that is a good thing for my mind and my soul.
Yeah, and I think going into my 50s, I kind of realized this is my last, I kind of feel like it's my last hurrah to kind of really push and do something like that.
Yeah.
And so, that's why it's like, okay, I'm not going to have the energy and the capacity to go at that kind of pace and level, or want to.
I think that's more of it, Alli. I think
I know that window's closing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's how I was in my 50s. I was happy to push, to get up and grind. And I liked it. But I'm finding that I don't enjoy constant work anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going to like it forever either, Shawna.
Correct. And so you might as well strike while the iron is hot. Enjoy it while you can, because things will change. And I'm ever so thankful that I've had I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur, given that I was a teacher for almost 20 years. I never thought I'd be that. And I was a heck of an entrepreneur. I did well.
And while you were single, you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah, as a single person.
I just remember how many conversations poor Robbie and I had when I was making that jump, and how I questioned myself. Should I, could I, can I?
Yeah.
Is this a good idea? And how he was just on board and supportive, and that was a gift. But I can't imagine. I don't think I'd have done it. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I would have done it had I been single. I don't know.
Yeah, and I did have a home business while I was married for a little bit. So there was
you did have that already. Yeah.
There was a start. So gotcha. I don't want to take anything away from my former husband, in that he was quite supportive at the time. But then as my business and confidence grew, that's where
things changed.
Correct. So, wow. Well, I guess, maybe when we're turning 100, we'll
be like Elaine Lelaine.
Yeah, you'll be interviewing me when I'm turning 100. You're just going to be just a little old 87. Right?
Hey, Shawna, you'll be around still kicking to interview me when I'm 100. So you'll be like, whoa. Well, they'll be doing studies on you. Like, how did she live to 117 and she can still do all this?
Well, I don't know, but I'm happy for where we're at right now, Alli. If you had a wish for our listeners, what would it be?
My wish is that we just enjoy the journey, and it's going to change. Every decade's going to be different, and continue to take care of ourselves. Let's do that.
You always steal mine. And that's exactly what I was going to say for a wish, is that understand that change will come, but change can be good. And what doesn't seem like a good thing at the time can sometimes be the best thing for you, and just stick with it and keep those healthy habits going along the way, and you'll be surprised at where you're at.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminsky. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback.
If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.